A hobby that hinges a lot on hype, as well as the opinions of people on the internet, can be a bit overwhelming when you first get into it. All this free information, and it's all subjective, so you're always right. Right? Wrong. So here are my 5 things you should avoid when joining the keyboard hobby. Number 1. Buying loads of budget keyboards. When getting into anything new, there's always this sense of urgency, like you need to catch up to something or someone. You know, like buying a booster box of Pokemon cards without even playing the game. Oh wait, bad example. Similarly to other hobbies, there is this need to keep up with current trends. This may be a certain sound signature or a specific build colorway that you see on RMK. The same is seen a lot in fashion, or the need to buy a new video game the day it comes out. But with keyboards, you have the added stress of FOMO. With most of the high-end kits running on time-constrained group buys, it might seem beneficial to buy 3 or 4 cheaper boards without ever investing in a high-end custom kit, especially when a lot of the good cheaper boards can range from $50 to $100. And while this may be true and allowing you to try out a number of different configurations and decide what you really like, these cheaper kits may not hold value as well as the more expensive kits, and overall may lead you 2 to 3 months down the line to regret buying all those boards when you see your one endgame board listed up for group buy. Remember, quality, not quantity. Now I think with the current state of the hobby and the budget options we have, it's not as much the problem as it was back in the day, but it's definitely still something to be aware of. Like, do you really need 6 GK61s? I think with a lot of the boards from Keychron and Akko and even the QWERTY boards, you can try out a number of configurations, plates and switches and really get an idea of what you like in this hobby. Like the QK75 can be built plateless. I couldn't do that on my Tofu 60. One potential way to avoid this pitfall is by going to keyboard meetups. Now I know this isn't something for everybody and can maybe be daunting, but it will allow you to talk to other people with similar interests, try out some boards and really figure out what you like. Especially if it's a smaller meetup, you'll be able to really get to talking about, well, keyboards. Number 2. Clones. Clones. Remember the day I googled GMK keycaps and got lost in the mech market source, but then that little devil on my shoulder whispered to scroll down the Google page a bit, check out that AliExpress link, and you see the same caps but for 1/10 of the price. Why would you not buy them? Now I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with buying clones if you just like the colorway, or you're not in the financial position, or don't massively want to spend over $100 on pieces of plastic. But that being said, I think it's important to highlight why there's this price difference and why people don't just buy clones. When comparing clones to original GMK sets, there's a distinct difference in the quality of the legending as well as the thickness of the caps. Quality aside, clones could be damaging to the original designs of the specific key set. If you are against clones but don't want to shell out both your hard-earned time and money, there's a number of options nowadays. In terms of manufacturers offering faster lead times, we have PBT fans, MW Keys, and Dropzone DCX, which offer custom colorways at a lower price than GMK, as well as far shorter production times, meaning you don't have to wait 3 years from purchase to actually receiving your caps. Don't want to wait any time at all? 21KB are a great option for beige vintage inspired sets at a cheaper price and are in stock. I think at this point I only use 21KB and they're really good for the price. Now speaking of group buys, that leads me to number 3. Too many group buys. Now, group buys are this great thing and allow you to buy something that's up for a limited time from a designer that you may have been following in the hobby for quite some time. You may have seen them post this item up for interest check. You might have seen the different ideas that they put in to get the final product, and you really want to support the designer to bring their idea to fruition. But this also means that you only have a set window to purchase certain items. Once again, FOMO. The fear that if you don't buy that $300 keyboard now, you'll never get it again is the catalyst for ending up with 20 different 60%. Getting cartjacked on a first come first serve sale, so you panic buy the only color left. If you join a group buy for something that doesn't ship out for 6 odd months, you might see a number of different boards come to fruition during that time that may have been better suited to your tastes and your needs. Now, in a hobby like this, group buys are great, but unlike a lot of other hobbies, you can't just run to the store to buy a pack of trading cards to get into it. And a lot of the high-end custom kits may take a while to arrive at your doorstep after you make the initial purchase. More so with key sets, but group buys can hit delays of sometimes a year up to 2 years from when you make the purchase to when you receive the product in your hands. I'm looking at you, Rama. Keyboards and key sets will need to be quality checked, and if they don't meet the required standards of the designer or the vendor, then it may take even longer for you to receive your keyboard. And for this reason, it's important not to join every single group buy you like. There will always be other keyboards, other keycap sets, and hell, I know that this time last year, my tastes were completely different to what they are now. And so I'm guessing some group buys you enter, you might not even like the products by the time you finally receive it. And there are also these magical things called extras. Most vendors will order in extras of boards, key sets, or even switches from group buys to sell on their site after the items for the group buy have been fulfilled. So if there is something you like but you don't want to commit to it within that very slim time frame, there's no harm in waiting a year or so to see if you still like it and pick it up then. I've picked up a load of things through extras, and most recently I picked up this very cool macro panel GMK add-on. Remember guys, subjective hobby. Number 4, switch hoarding. Past the group buy rabbit hole and keyboards themselves, switches are a big problem. Well, I wouldn't say problem. Like, I don't have a problem. I swear, please. Now, I'm guilty of this too. Buying switches based on hype or wanting to try a certain configuration can lead you to spending $50 for an entire board of switches just to hate the outcome. I mean, hype really drove Holy Pandas to go for up to $6 per switch at one point. Like, that's over $350 for switches. And that's just for a 60%. COVID was a wild time, you know. How many of you are keeping up with your bread making hobby, eh? Now, one way around bulk buying switches is buying these things called switch testers. Before you even sit down to build your first keyboard, it might be quite daunting to think whether you're like clicky, linear, or tactile switch is the best. Whether you're like a small tactile bump, a large tactile bump, or whether you'll even like silent switches. Companies make large switch testers that give you an idea of how a number of different types of switches will sound and feel. Companies like Cherry and Gateron are great for this, giving you a chance to try a number of their staple switches. If there are specific branded switches you're after, a lot of stores help with this by offering grab bag sales of switches. This means you can try out a number of specific single switches before you commit to a whole build of them. I've done this from a local vendor to test a number of different linear switches for a specific build, and to learn the hard way that my fingers are too frail for heavy tactiles. And the final point, just don't be a dick. No matter what hobby you get into, there's always those people who take things a little too seriously. And like, that is okay, but just don't be that person. It's meant to be fun for everyone, and I think there's a large difference between knowing a lot and wanting to share and help others who first enter the hobby, and just clowning on newcomers for not knowing obscure things. What do you mean you don't know the Pantone for GMK Mudbeam Alphas? Oh, what's your monkey type high score? 130? Yeah, try 400. All jokes aside, I don't think this is massively a problem anymore, and most of the online forums and the Discord groups are very welcoming to newcomers. There's this real sense of community around the hobby, and I think this is really great to see. Unless you try and post an IC on Geek Hack without doing the proper research first. Just don't. Okay, and that leads me to my secret 6th point. Don't be scared to get involved in the conversation. As I say, there are Discord groups for wherever you are in the world, and there's meetups around the globe. There will always be people you can learn from and chat to, because like anything else, when you first try and get into a hobby, everything can seem a little overwhelming. But getting into a new hobby and learning new things is meant to be fun and exciting. Remember, it's not about the destination, but the thocks we make along the way. Now, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and leave a like down below. I'm trying to hit 700 by the end of the year, so any help in that would be greatly appreciated. And make sure to let me know in the comments if there's anything that you personally wish you'd avoided when first getting into the hobby. And as always, see you later, nerds.